Here are the three things the Auburn Tigers need to do to upset Oklahoma on Saturday.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Happy Auburn, Oklahoma game day eve. We're breaking it all down with the Darrell Dapprichas, Montgomery radio legend. Darrell, we'll talk about some Auburn basketball stuff, specifically one thing that was said that kind of got you fired up, as well as our official predictions for Auburn and Oklahoma, but specifically what Auburn needs to do to upset the Sooners. The first one, it's not a shock. Auburn needs to get out of its own way.
Absolutely. The self-inflicted mistakes, the shooting yourself in the foot. And look, when you hear that, a lot of times it is equated to two things: turnovers and penalties. And Auburn has been, the penalty ledger, you made a great point in one of our shows where it's not so one-sided like the turnover margin of it, turnover margin is. But I think the turnovers speak for themselves. That's just a numbers thing. That's just a net. Auburn is absolutely turning it over too much. And even if they were causing as many turnovers as that they are giving away, it's still too much. But I think the second thing that's a little bit, the penalty thing is a little more level or even on the ledger. But Zach, it's when they're happening. It's some inopportune times. It's things that are extending drives. And when you get off the field, see, it's a twofold type scenario. One particular example, you get off the field with Cal punting from their own with Arkansas punting from their own 19. That goes away, and you also let them extend the drive by the way, guess what they did on the end of that drive? Scored a touchdown.
Right.
So that's like at least a negative 10 when you look at it. So that's why turnovers and bad penalties that keep you from getting off the field, self-inflicted wounds, number one, clean those up, have to.
Yeah, the second is Auburn needs to win the rushing battle. They need to outrush Oklahoma. This is one I feel pretty confident about. Auburn is rushing the ball for 178 yards per game. Oklahoma, second worst in the SEC right now. Does their quarterback change allow them to be more lethal on the ground? Possibly. Possibly. I think that argument would make sense, but Oklahoma just rushing the ball for 128 yards per game. Only LSU is worse in the SEC. They're at 103, which is kind of wild. But yeah, you got to win the rushing attack here.
Good point. You remember how Auburn's rushing yards seemed a little skewed sometimes when Robbie would come in the game because his rushing yards padded the totals? That may happen with Michael Hawkins Saturday. You may pick up an extra 30 or 40 yards because he's that type of guy. He quarterback sweeps. Sometimes, dude, he just takes the ball and goes like Robbie used to do. That may get affected. But I'll say this. So people may say, well, then why is it that important that Auburn outrushes Oklahoma if they've done that statistically throughout the year? Maybe that forces Auburn to say, wow, look at this advantage we have. Let's stick with it a little bit more. Let's not put it up in the air as much and give ourselves the opportunity to turn it over. So knowing you have that much of an advantage, Zach, may make them utilize it more.
I mean, I think they're going to have to run the ball if you're Oklahoma. There's a lot stacked against Oklahoma's offense going into Saturday, which is really why I feel somewhat confident about Saturday. We'll get to our official predictions next segment. But to me, if you're Oklahoma offensively, you got to think that the game plan is going to be to keep the ball on the ground. A freshman's first start on the road at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It's not an ideal situation. How do you make a quarterback comfortable? Well, we've talked about this from the Auburn point of view for weeks, is you run the football. You make him have to do less. And to me, like you're going to have to figure that out.
I was doing a little bit of espionage, a little spying, going to different boards, checking things out, little teleconferences and all that. And there seems to be this belief that if Oklahoma plays conservative, that eventually Auburn will beat itself. That they'll do enough.
I 100%
You see
agree
what I'm
with that
saying?
right
So
now.
they're saying, hey, look, we don't need to do anything crazy. Let Auburn make the mistakes. Let Auburn beat themselves. We'll just run it. We'll take care of the ball. We'll use our dynamic quarterback and his legs. We'll play salty defense. Auburn will eventually find a way to implode. That's the kind of the narrative that some of the off the record that some of the coaches at Oklahoma and some of the writers that are covering them feel like. And so if you don't do that, if you're Auburn, then that changes things because now you've got to adjust if you're Oklahoma. And then maybe you say, well, we've got to try to make some plays. And then maybe Auburn gets a chance to be on the positive side of the turnover ledger.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. And if you tell me that Auburn wins the turnover battle on Saturday, I think Auburn probably wins.
Oh,
doesn't that feel like a huge if at this point, Darrell?
It does, and I'll tell you how pathetic that is, and how even desperate that is. I feel like if Auburn is just even, doesn't even have to win the turnover, just doesn't have to lose it. Like either both teams turn it over twice or neither team turns it over at all, that Auburn has a good shot at winning the football game. That's how much I think they've hurt themselves with self-inflicted stuff.
Yeah, it hasn't been good to say the least. So what's the third thing Auburn needs to make sure happens if they want to pull off this upset this weekend?
I'm gonna put a quantitative number to it, and I'm gonna say Auburn has to hold Oklahoma to less than 40% on third down conversions. And that includes third and long. So you did a great job when we did our reaction show last week, because if someone would have just looked at the numbers, they would have said Auburn wasn't that bad at third down. Then you pulled out a piece and said, well, let's look at what they were on 3rd and 10. And it was like 60% third and 10 or longer. Less than that, it was 40%. So it's not just third down conversions, it's third and long that's even more damaging. So I feel like if you can keep Oklahoma under 40% total on third down conversions and get off the field, Auburn's got a good chance.
Which, once again, like just to emphasize, freshman quarterback on the road, not a whole lot of experience. If you can keep them in third and long, like you should like your chances. But I also would have said the same thing last week going into the Arkansas game, where this is a quarterback that's effective with his feet, kind of questionable as a passer. But when it was 3rd and 9+, it just didn't seem to matter, Darrell. They've got to fix this. They have. And I don't know how much you can really work on that at practice. Like, I don't know how you can really add extra weight to a specific rep in practice, which is what 3rd and long is. It's a play with a little extra weight on it. And there's only so much you can do to like emulate it, which I know when they're doing walkthroughs or whatever, they'll say, hey, it's 3rd and 8. And like, you're supposed to act as if it is a 3rd and 8 or whatever, but like, you just can't, like the pressure in a game, you can't simulate that in practice.
No, and I don't want to sound like Hugh Freeze did on Tiger Talk Monday night, but I do believe that Taylon Green is who we thought he was. Go back and look at his stats. Yeah, he made that great play on 3rd and 19, that one dynamic play.
Sure.
Go back and look at his stats. His completion percentage, I believe, was under 50%. And did he not throw 2 picks? He did not have a great game. He extended some plays with his legs, and some plays were extended by pass interference and getting hit out of bounds. You take those plays away, he gets off the field, he's even got less opportunities to complete passes. He didn't play great. He played well enough for them to win, and he made that one big play that ended up being such a game changer. But, 2 interceptions, less than 50%. Auburn didn't get beat because of Taylon Green last Saturday. I can assure you that. If Michael Hawkins has a similar game and Auburn doesn't hurt itself again, they are putting themselves in a really good position to win.
Just such a big if, because Oklahoma's defense is so good and pretty opportunistic when it comes to forcing turnovers. So we'll see. Our official predictions: does Auburn pull off the upset against Oklahoma? We'll give you our best guess and prediction coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Robinhood Gold. You don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Darrell, today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel. You have home field apparel stuff. I have home field apparel stuff. You have home field apparel swag from multiple colleges.
I do.
But obviously, the bulk of the folks watching, they're going to want the Auburn stuff. But they've got it all at homefieldapparel.com.
Got a lot of great stuff. I mean, some of the stuff is so retro and throwback that's becoming very, very popular. That's the stuff that I gravitate towards because it's hard to find. And look, it translates to anywhere, all different schools, different leagues, that kind of thing. It's great. It's funny that I used to love this brand even before they started advertising. So that's always cool.
Yep. Yeah. So go check it out. Homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code WAREAGLE24. Darrell, our official prediction time now for this matchup between Auburn and Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma wins. I do think Auburn does their best to make this game as ugly as possible. I think there's going to be a lot of running clock because I think both teams are going to kind of say, hey, we need to keep the clock rolling and keep the football on the ground and in the hands of our running backs and really enhancing that running game. I think you're going to see both offenses try to do that, to our point that we made last segment. But I think Auburn loses a close one. I think Oklahoma wins I'd say 20-13, 23-17. That's kind of the area that I'm thinking.
23-17 is a great pick. And that's what I am picking as well. But I'm picking Auburn. And I'm going to tell you, this game reminds me so much, and I mentioned this before, the 2016 Auburn LSU game. Season on the line, elimination bowl, desperation.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, intellectually, I'm with you. I'm like Oklahoma. But for some reason that I can't define or explain or articulate, I just got a feeling. And it's weird because the Cal-Arkansas games, intellectually, I'm like Auburn. But before both games, I had an uneasy feeling, and I couldn't figure out why. I don't know. I just have a really weird, strange, in my bones feeling. Could be wrong. I'm not being a homer. I think Auburn finds a way and wins this game 23-17.
That'd be incredible. I mean, it saves the season if you do that. I mean, that's what's at stake here. It doesn't totally erase what happened against Cal and Arkansas. Those were both terrible losses. In fact, some people may make the case of well, what happened? I mean, imagine what this could have been if we could have just taken care of business. But when points are going to be at a premium, I've said this all week, when points are going to be so hard to come by, I just can't shake. I don't know if I'm not going to say it's fear, paranoia, maybe, that there's going to be an Auburn turnover on, the Auburn side of the field, and it puts Oklahoma in a scoring position and gives them, a free 50 or 60 yards of field position. And if you do that in a game that we expect to be like this, where the defenses are going to be very good and the offenses are going to be inconsistent, I mean, that could be the football game, Darrell. And to me, to pick Auburn, you have to say that that's not going to happen, or it's not going to happen more than once. And I'm just not at a point where I can predict that right now.
I think you know who I'm referring to when I say both of us have read things and seen things from former players that have played the game and have coached the game that are like, the plays are there. I don't understand how Auburn's not 4-0. After going back and watching film, I feel better about this season. I'm quoting people that and I know that we respect that have played the game, and they'll say it's there for the taking. It has to come together on one Saturday. This trend can't continue. Maybe it's this Saturday. And I think that if Auburn is able to do that, it's funny. It saves the season, but I don't feel like it enables Auburn to reach the goals that it had for the season, but it keeps that alive. You lose the game, though, and then it's completely it's going to be difficult. I don't see the path to get to 6 wins. You win the game, and you can get to 6 or 7. That's how big of a swing game this is.
Agreed.
So, and we've been calling it a swing game all year, just didn't know for this reason.
Yeah, we thought it'd be the difference between 7 wins or 8
and 9 wins.
Not,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, not like you may not go to a bowl game if you don't win this. But you're right. I mean, if you beat Oklahoma, you feel better about, I'm not going to say at Missouri, but I will say at Kentucky. You feel better about hosting Vandy, and you beat ULM, and it's like, all right, those are your 6. If you could take care of business.
I feel better about Texas A&M too. I mean, I'm not being ugly. They lost to Notre Dame, and they struggled to beat Bowling Green. Why are we acting like they're Georgia? I mean, Auburn ain't no great thing, but I
guess we'll learn. They play Arkansas. Yeah, they play Arkansas this weekend.
But are we really going to learn about them? I mean, if they beat Arkansas by a touchdown, we'll say, oh, okay, Auburn should have it.
That's a good point. Like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. Good point. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. And that's what's also so frustrating. It's like the schedule is so manageable, and it's just those 2 losses are brutal. Those 2 losses are brutal. But yeah,
and they deserved those 2 losses. I want to say this right now. They deserved to get beat with the way they played and the mistakes they made and the stupid penalties they made. You deserve to get beat. There's no, injustice. You deserve to get beat because of that. You got what you were, totally, you got what you earned.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Who, all right. So you're predicting Auburn to win. Who's the playmaker that makes it happen? Who's the player of the game, if you had to guess?
I think Hunter is really going to be that bell cow. I could see him getting 20 to 25 carries, going for over 100 yards, but it'd be very hard yards, like averaging 4 yards a carry, but being a workhorse.
Let me ask you this.
Let
me ask you this then, specifically about Hunter. I don't think he's going to get that many touches. I want him to. I don't think he's going to get that many touches because of how they call plays with the whole RPO thing. Do you think Freeze is going to change what he clearly thinks is working?
Yes.
Because guys are getting open. You think he will change?
I think you'll see.
Because we haven't really seen that to this point.
I think he's going to change some play calling tendencies Saturday. I think there's going to be some things reeled in. There's going to be some things that he kind of looks at and goes, well, let's not beat ourselves. Let's make Oklahoma beat us. And in order to do that, what's our one best constant stable weapon that we can count on that's a known quantity, and that is Jarquez. And if you get him the ball 20 to 25, look, we used to laugh and joke and talk about Gus Malzahn and all that, but to his credit, he knew what his strengths were, and he knew who he had to ride to win a game. And if it was Kerryon Johnson, or if it was Trey Mason, whatever, he did what he had to do, even if he made someone run the wheels fall off, because he felt like that was going to be his best chance to win. I get the schemes and I get the receivers running wide open, but maybe, just maybe, you don't have the quarterback yet to fulfill that scheme and to hit those wide open. I don't care how wide open receivers are if you can't get them the ball. And we've said that as if they were trying to throw from their back. If the offensive line wasn't giving them protection and you got guys running through the secondary and you're getting sacked, that's not happening. So I'm saying the known commodity is Jarquez. Make Oklahoma beat you by stopping him and forcing you to shift. Get him the ball 20 or 25 times. Eliminate the opportunities for turnovers. And then, by the way, what's Oklahoma going to do? They're going to try to adjust at some point. You know how Venables is. They start cheating up, then maybe you have some open opportunities downfield. But I'd make them stop at first.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
Change it up. Let's go.
Yeah, let's make this a Jarquez Hunter offense. I will have no issues with that whatsoever. Hey, something interesting happened with Auburn basketball that got you a little fired up. Is that safe to say? Is that safe to say? Yeah, Darrell, let's jump into that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Auburn, a 2.5-point underdog. Based on my score prediction, I take Oklahoma to cover. You take Auburn to cover. And not only that, win outright. So if you agree with Darrell, I mean, that's just the value pick right there. Take Auburn to win outright over at FanDuel.com/lockedon. And hey, when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats and live play-by-play on the same screen as you place your bets. So you can get started right now with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is at FanDuel.com. The Auburn basketball season is getting closer and closer. Probably the most exciting roster on paper that Bruce Pearl has had in his tenure. But something happened this week that got you a little fired up, and I want you to share it.
So Auburn basketball, their X site, their Twitter site, did a little short piece, maybe about a 3-minute interview with Bruce Pearl, a little preview of the upcoming season. And they asked him about what his biggest, I guess, I don't want to say concern, but unknown going into the season. And he said it's his roster. And, it's kind of like, what? And he's like, but it's a good thing. He said, this is a good thing. And they asked him to expound a little bit, and he was very articulate, saying, it's the first time in a long time I've gone into a season not knowing how to utilize my roster, meaning not knowing so much about what were absolute, and I'm paraphrasing here, what were known commodities. So when he expounded, it was like, okay, originally I thought Taj Petford was going to be an off-the-ball guard, the freshman. And he said, now, Pettiford, yeah. He said, now I'm going to have to really rethink this, and he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot more. And he said, originally, Denver Jones was going to be a guy that was just going to be, off the ball and just a shooter and off the ball shooter. And now he's going to have to run a lot more point. And those two guys have a lot of interchangeable versatility. And he said, that's the theme of my roster. I've got Janai Broome, who's going to play some 4, which we talked about months ago that could happen. And now it seems like it's coming to fruition. He said, now he can play some forward for me. And then he said, and my wings, I got so many to choose from. I can use Chad Baker-Mazara. I can use Howard. I can use Miles Kelly. And all of them can play the 2 or play the 3. And I mean, he's just like, I can put some of them at the 2. I can put them some of them at the small forward. He said, I have so many intermovable parts that, from a roster standpoint, I don't know where I'm going to plug everybody in, but I have ultimate and multiple options. So that got me fired up thinking about matchups. When you play different schools throughout the country, especially in the non-conference schedule that Bruce Pearl is playing, you're going to see different defensive, obviously, formations, 2-3s, 2-1-2s, whatever. If someone goes big against you, Auburn can counter that. If someone goes small ball against you and tries to play 3 guards on top and turn it over, Auburn can counter that. I think the versatility and the flexibility can allow them to plug and play what they need to match up against somebody defensively. And that's got me really, really excited.
Yeah, and also, I mean, just when you couple how loaded the SEC is right now, I mean, it's better than it was a few years ago. With the non-conference schedule that you're going to play, you're going to need dudes. You're going to need rotations, and some people are going to miss some time, and you're going to have depth across the board. And to me, the way he's built this roster, and also the way he convinces some of these guys to come in when it's clear that they're not going to play 20 minutes a night. I mean, it's pretty amazing, honestly.
Well, I think the thing about how he's got this roster constructed is there should not be a significant drop-off if you do go 10 or 11 guys by changing people and putting them in multiple positions. It should be fairly, the transition should be easy. He didn't even mention
The drop off, if Janai plays the 4, the drop off when he leaves the court, I think is that's going to be the noticeable drop off.
Right. I'm talking about if everybody is there and it's just interchangeable. But you think about a scenario, JP Pegues, he didn't even mention him. And Auburn went out and got him to be the point guard, to be the guy. And then Miles Kelly and Chad. I mean, wow, it's going to be very entertaining. I hope that people don't understand and it gets lost in translation where this whole, Bruce can't settle on a lineup and he rotates people in and out too much and his combinations. You cannot build a roster like he's just built and not do it that way. You can't. You have to integrate multiple people at multiple positions. It's smart because then when one guy goes out because of foul trouble or needing a blow, you can put somebody else in there in that position that could play multiple positions. So he's not just locked into saying, oh, I can only come in for X. He can come in for X and Y. And that gives him more minutes. It's state of the art. And now how it translates, we'll see chemistry wise and that kind of thing. But I'm pretty fired up. I'm telling you what, when I heard him talk, it made sense. It really did. Yeah.
I'm with you. Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on, man?
Follow me on X, Dapp6410, Instagram, Darrell Dapp. And then I'm with you Wednesdays and Fridays. And then the reaction show that we record after the football games that we drop Sunday mornings.
Yes. And I'll go live right after the Auburn game. So we'll have plenty of content for Auburn and Oklahoma this weekend. Until then, please like the video, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.